We are officially a week out from the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. I'm joined here by Brendan for our second Statletics show of the 2024 offseason. We're going to break down some of the drafts, some of our favorite first-round picks, go through some hypotheticals, some of our favorite bets, bold predictions, nothing crazy. This isn't going to be too intensive of a show. We're just going to kind of give a high-level overview and have a bit of fun ahead of the draft. If you're a longstanding fan of the show, you know how we do this. It's pretty casual, and again, we're just here to have some fun. Before we do that, Brendan, how we doing, man?
Great. It's Friday, and we're gonna have a fun weekend. I'm ready to talk about the draft a little bit. This is the first time I've ever filmed the show in the morning, so see how it goes.
Yeah. If we're
Before work.
if we're asleep, we're a little lull right now. It's pretty early in the morning, so. But hey, best way to get the gears going, talking about the draft.
Let's go.
Speaking of the draft, first 5 picks. I feel like the first 2 are a shoo-in. At least the first one, Caleb Williams. I mean, can we just accept the obvious? Caleb Williams going 1 overall to the Bears. It's inevitable they get rid of Justin Fields. I'm not going to really spend too much time breaking down something that is surely going to happen. So,
yes,
but
I agree.
We can have some fun with the next couple picks. Washington and New England are at 2 and 3. Now, if you watched one of our last Statletics shows, we had a guest and we talked about Washington taking Jaden Daniels. It makes way too much sense. They signed Marcus Mariota, fits a similar style of play, and they brought in Cliff Kingsbury, who I know for a fact will probably be begging for Jaden Daniels, considering the athletic profile and the way that Cliff Kingsbury runs his offense, And to be fair, I would be too. I mean, Jaden Daniels is hands down the most athletic quarterback in that draft. And, shocking stat, Jaden Daniels actually leads all of the top 5 quarterbacks in total EPA generated in this last season in college. So, he's a playmaker, he's a baller, and I think he's everything that Cliff Kingsbury could possibly want. So, with that, I know, Brendan, you have some Drake May love over there. Could you see why?
I do have some Drake May love. So Drake May had an odd career in college. Like he was back up to Sam Howell, and he didn't get in there as a freshman. And then he had a really good year.
Mm-hmm.
His first year starting, and then after that, he's taken some step backs. But they've had some coaching changes and scheme changes, and it's just been kind of a rocky road for Drake May the last couple of years. Last year, and he's more of a project, right? When he gets to the NFL, but you're seeing comps to like Josh Allen, like he's a big guy, he can hunk the rock, he's mobile, he's plenty mobile. I think he led North Carolina in rushing TDs one of the years in college, and he's plenty capable, but he's just not proven as much as Jaden Daniels is proven. So it's kind of like, do you want a more NFL ready guy or a guy that could be like Josh Allen? Because Josh Allen sucked his first year. He threw 35 interceptions or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's if you want a guy to work out like immediately, you take a chance on that. And if more pro ready, or if you want a little bit of a project that you can work on down the road. And I'm, honestly, I never understood the JJ McCarthy love, but based on hearing a bunch of scouts talking about it, like I could be sold on it, and I don't think it's out of the realm that he's a similar like style to these guys where he's mobile and he's accurate. He didn't have to do that in college. So again, it's more of a not proven statement. So it kind of depends on what you want as a team, like building, or if you want to start right away. And these teams at the top suck, so I'm sure they want it right away, right?
Yeah.
So I agree that I think Jaden Daniels will go second to the Commanders. However, I will point out that the lines have moved a good amount the last 2 days. Like Jaden Daniels was like minus 230 to go second, and now he's like, minus 130.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's moving. I just know that when it gets closer to the draft, there's rumors that float around, and some things could happen. So I don't think it's worth it if you like Drake May at 2 to put money on him now. it would have been more worth it a couple weeks ago. But I think it's interesting that the lines have moved a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, so a lot of people have their like overall consensus draft board of best available.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to go best available to most, the consensus would be Caleb Williams, Drake May, and then everybody else falls in on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jaden Daniels fits the profile for the Commanders the best, and I think that's why he was favored so high. But I think the market's starting to scale back a little bit because, again, most everybody's consensus is Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels in that order. So, it's like the Commanders, while seemingly everything fits for Jaden Daniels to step in there and be the starting quarterback next year, it's new ownership. Nobody knows how they're going to draft here. And, do they want to go with best option available, or do they want to go to the seemingly best fit and the guy that probably will bring them the most success in their first year? Maybe not in the most success overall, but it just makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of ambiguity there. I'm personally around the Jaden Daniels train. I think he's going to, be the starting quarterback for the Commanders. But also wouldn't be shocked if, they took a chance on Drake May. This Commanders organization, they're just looking for some sort of spark, They need something to sell jerseys. They need somebody to, give the crowd a bit of hope, give the fans some hope. So I think that's Jaden Daniels, just because, he's more of a electrifying type player, I guess. Yeah. Drake May is not the sexy pick, but, he's certainly, I think, a great high upside type of candidate. And then, subsequently after, we have New England picking here. And this is where it gets fun because it's a new head coach, kind of a change in the regime of everything. So I've seen a couple of scenarios drop down here. One, Patriots, they're certainly looking for a quarterback. No ifs, ands, or buts. But I think in the case of which Drake May doesn't land to him, they're left with kind of two options. Say, go J.J. McCarthy, or they take the best overall, second best player on the board in Marvin Harrison Jr., because they could also use a wide receiver. But the problem is if they go Marvin Harrison, who the hell is going to throw him the football? So this is a fun debate that I've had in the offseason. I can see one of three things happening. They take a quarterback here, whether it's JJ or Drake May or Jaden Daniels, depending on, what happens at 2, or they take Marvin Harrison, or they trade out. And I'm seeing a couple of different things, but, we talked about this and it actually got you fired up a little bit, but
yeah,
Giants, Patriots, trade, they just pick swap right there. The Giants are looking for, I think they're fed up with Daniel Jones, and I think the Patriots are happy with, whatever option they get. They're not hurting to get anybody, at least from what it feels like. They don't have a particular guy in mind that I've seen out of some of the beat writers and coming out of, the offseason of who exactly they want from this draft. So it kind of makes sense. I know that the Patriots probably need a quarterback more than the Giants, but at the same time, they're not in any sort of, rush to get there. So I could actually see Patriots trading out here and then getting the same guy, either, out of JJ in that same spot with a little extra draft capital, or they just wait and see if somebody falls to the second. So it's crazy, but
you can't
much in the realm of possibility.
You can't predict this, right? But we've seen the Vikings, like mocks of the Vikings trading up and everything. If the Patriots trade down to like 6, right? Because they're fine of Drake May or McCarthy, and one of them's gone, right? One of them's gone. The Giants take one. The Chargers are sitting there, and they've got the ability to trade back too. And it seems very easy for the Vikings just to sneak right ahead and take that other one. And you can't predict that, but that would just be a slap in the face. I've got a kind of a question here. Gerard Mayo is the head coach of the Patriots now, and I listened to something a couple months ago just talking about how he was a linebacker in the NFL and he knows what quarterbacks are the hardest to defend. What do you think about the Patriots trading up to 2
They could do
to
it.
get Jaden? If the Commanders didn't have a huge preference there. Now that's barring they don't have a huge preference there.
True.
So,
And maybe that's what we see with some of the the Vegas odds, but at the same time, are you willing to give up that, when, I don't know, I'm kind of a gambling man, so if I'm New England, I'm rolling the dice on either he lands to me at 3 or I just take Drake May, because in reality, the best success rate for a quarterback coming out of the draft that you can possibly hope for would be like 25%. Nobody is ever a guaranteed shoe in. I mean, you think about it, like if you put implied probability on the success of Caleb Williams, meaning he is a bona fide franchise quarterback and, he brings the Bears to a couple playoffs and potentially even a Super Bowl. The odds there, it's not like it's a coin flip, and like he is the resounding number 1 overall pick, like hands down. It's going to happen, but the actual probability of him turning out to be a long-term success is like 20 to 25%, and that's astronomically large for a quarterback in the draft. So again, you're talking about at 2 and 3 with Drake May and Jane Daniels, you're talking about like a 5 or 10% chance that he works out in the long run, given the nature of the sport and what we've seen in the past and based off of data in the past. So if I was New England, I wouldn't necessarily trade up unless they just wanted to do like some sort of pick swap.
Yeah.
I'll give you your one for my one, and then I'll send over, some edge rusher or, whatever, something like that.
It's just, it seems like there's a lot of urgency this year for the quarterbacks because it seems like right now in the present that this class of quarterbacks, at least the top 4, are significantly better than like next year.
Right.
But this time next year that there'll be like 3 or 4 guys that are supposed to be like really good. So it seems like there's a lot of urgency. If I'm the Patriots, I just sit there. I don't trade out, and I go ahead and take it because they do need a quarterback. Unless they're able to get like 3 more picks, like later in this draft or like for next year. Like if they were able to get a first next year, like a high first, that'd be good. But you can't predict all those things, and sometimes they fall on your in place, and sometimes they blow up.
Yeah.
So if I'm then, I would just take one, whoever it is. But I'm not a GM. I wish I was.
And so, that'll be that. I think they're going to stick firm, and I think they're both going to rotate out one of the top 3 quarterbacks outside, not named Caleb Williams. Now, at 4, Arizona, I would be shocked if they didn't trade out of this, given the nature of this team. They have their quarterback in Kyler Murray, but they need a ton. They need so much out of this draft. They need so much out of the free agency. They need guys. They're such a lean team right now. And given that they're at number 4, especially in a draft that's so saturated with top level quarterbacks, if I was them, I would try to leverage this position and get as much draft capital as I can in the later rounds. Trade out, get somebody else's, first round pick, one of them in the wild card round or the divisional round, or even just, some of the mid round guys. So trade out, get some extra picks, try to get some bodies, fresh bodies on your team. I don't think they necessarily need this number 4 pick. And if I was the GM, which I'm not, that's what I would do. Why take the number 4 overall pick? I mean, the only thing that I can see in there is if they gambled on Marvin Harrison Jr. being there. But if he's not, that's a total waste. I mean, unless they wanted to like go with Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze that high. But I mean, you can still potentially get Brian Thomas around 16, 17. So It's worth a shot. If I was Arizona, I'd get out there and get as much draft capital as I can.
I mean, Maserati Marv is enticing. They've got this pick here. They also had the 27th pick, but they do need help everywhere that they freaking blow.
Mm-hmm.
They're awful, and they have like no wide receivers, like Michael Wilson or something like that.
Yeah,
They'd even traded Rondell Moore.
Yeah,
so they have nothing. They've got like a.
Hey, you're forgetting about Trey McBride. Give my boy some respect.
Oh my God, yeah. If you don't draft him in the first 3 rounds, yeah. They do need a wide receiver. I think they can get that in the first round still and still get a good producing guy like at 27 if they wanted to. I mean, they also need a little bit of offensive line help and defense, and their running back's 57 years old. So if I think it makes sense to trade back in the first round. So they still have 2 first-round picks and get like, a third or fourth or something like that. Just they can maybe get a young running back in, see if he can be pretty good, and then at their other pick in the first round, get an offensive lineman or some defensive help. So I think it makes sense, but the only thing that I come back to is like when you're trading up to that spot, who are you trying to get? Are you trying to get the remaining quarterback? Well, if you are, there's like if the Vikings are, there's no teams before them that need a quarterback except for the Giants. So it's like I don't understand why you would waste your 11 pick and give up, or why you would trade up to the 4th, give up your 11th, and maybe another pick just to get McCarthy when you can probably get him at 11.
Yeah, I think the only I see 2 scenarios in this. I see one team who, in particular, thinks that who thinks that the Patriots are pretty much going to roll the dice and get Marvin Harrison Jr. rather than one of the quarterbacks, or they can see Washington and New England both going quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and Drake May, or JJ McCarthy. What do I know? And then they land Marvin Harrison Jr. Or they just really want JJ McCarthy. I don't know. But those are kind of the scenarios I see in which a team trades up. I don't know. I would be hard-pressed to find somebody who would trade up that high for a wide receiver, but I could definitely see somebody trading up that high in hopes that New England takes Marvin Harrison Jr. rather than going with a quarterback. So, but that's a gamble, It's always a gamble.
I mean, what if you've got the Jets with a pick swap and they get Marv, and then you've got Aaron Rodgers, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty
very cool.
I think they're going to try and make a move after Malik Neighbors.
The Jets.
I think the Jets are going to try and move after Malik.
Hey, they are in a win now or never situation. So I think that's very possible. That's
got to be somebody.
It's got to be somebody. And what did they have, the 10th pick?
Yeah, 10th pick.
They'll still be able to get. I mean, who's left on the board at that point? Let's say Marvin Neighbors goes. Adunze. No, the Bears will probably get Adunze. I mean, they still got Brian Thomas. I think, they would move up. If they're going to try to do that and be aggressive, I think they would move up.
Yeah, for sure. So,
like I said, what other teams do you see going in that spot besides the Vikings or the Jets? You see any other teams? Giants, maybe?
No. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to see kind of any other teams trying to make a move like that. Just given on the nature of how they've acted previously in the draft. And I think if there's going to be any movement, it's going to be within that, like Arizona, New York. I can see Tennessee falling out, they're kind of in like a purgatory zone right now at 7. I can see them, trading out of that spot. I don't necessarily see them trading up. Same with Atlanta. Atlanta's at 8. They're in purgatory. They have their quarterback. They have their offensive skill weapons. I could see him doing trading out of the 8th spot for somebody, for a team that wants one of those top 3 guys in the wide receiver class. I could see Atlanta trading out of 8 and getting a couple picks later in the draft to try to get bodies on the defensive side of the ball. So it's a fun prospect right there. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of movement. in the draft, to be honest with you, until you get into like the round 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's a bunch of good offensive linemen. There's like 5 or 6 like pretty good prospects. I think the Titans just sit there and take whichever one they feel like is going to be help their offense because Titans blow.
I do
They're
have
set
one.
on. Yeah, I was just going to say they're set on skill position players.
Yeah.
D-Hop, Ridley, Pollard now, Tajay Spears. So, if they weren't going to go defense, they should just go ahead and get a shoe offensive lineman.
Exactly. Now, I do have one last fun prospect of a trade potential. Very unlikely, but at 9, Chicago, if they don't really have what they want, if they don't see anything, they already have Caleb Williams. I could see them trading out of their spot with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs getting Travis Kelce's successor and Brock Bowers if he falls. Now I have another bold prediction for Brock Bowers, but I'll hold that off until the second part of the show. So that's a fun trade that I think is more likely than what people would seem to think.
What else would they give up? Like, if you're like, who are you saying they would trade in for? The Bears?
Yeah, I'm saying Kansas City would give up their pick at 32 and jump to 9. And then they would also give up their second round and like a 4th round or something. Because the Chiefs are like still stacked.
Yeah,
they're not. They only lost L'Jarius Sneed, really out of that big team. So
I will say I was looking at like depth charts and they were talking about how Wanya Morris is their starting left tackle or left guard, whichever one it is, and they need to get that filled because everywhere else is good.
Yeah,
like on the line. So, I've been seeing some things about them just taking the best left side O lineman at the end of the first round, but that's really interesting. How old is Travis? 34.
He's old. And he's getting kind of fat.
Yeah.
He's got some love chub with Taylor.
That makes a lot of sense to do that.
Yeah.
But how soon are we thinking Travis is going to retire?
I think
1 year, 2 years.
If at some point this offseason he came out and said, "I can't do it anymore. I'm done," it would not surprise me one bit. He got his ring. He's got multiple rings now.
He just needs one more.
He ends out on top. It's just it would make too much sense, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that's a fun hypothetical trade. So I love that, the prospect of that potentially happening. Unlikely, but not as unlikely as somebody might think. So let's get into the second part of the show. I got some fun, over-unders and some best bets that I want to get into. And this is always the fun part that we do every year. For those, BJ had the infamous pick of getting Bryce Young, first overall pick, when it was like 25-1 before the news came in about him going. So just letting you guys know. That
movement was crazy.
It was.
That's why I'm looking at the Drake May, Jaden Daniels thing, and I'm like, what's going on? Because the movement on the other stuff was insane.
Yeah. So that was wow, the CJ Stroud and Frank Reich love tandem was going on, in the news cycle. And so called there. So we got some fun stuff coming out of it. Let's go ahead and dive in head first. We know the first couple with the quarterbacks given Caleb Williams as a shoe-in for the first overall, Jaden Daniels and whatnot. And Marvin Harrison are there kind of at the 2-3, as well as Drake May. We kind of already dissected that kind of as much as we possibly can. JJ McCarthy is an interesting prospect in this draft because his over-under is set at 5.5. So that means if you picked under, he would be picked by one of the Chargers, the Cardinals, New England, or Washington. I'm not even going to say the Bears because they're picking Caleb Williams. But we already talked about Washington and New England getting one of Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Now, there's an off chance that New England goes JJ McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, they're sticking with Kyler Murray, seemingly. And then the Chargers, they have Justin Herbert. So it would almost be like you're betting on somebody to trade, into the top 5, which is possible. We talked about Arizona trading out. So, but this over under shocked me. So you might have better odds on finding a team trading in or betting on the Cardinals to trade out. But I just thought this was crazy because you can get JJ McCarthy over 5.5 for plus 100, even money. That's ridiculous. Now, I love JJ McCarthy as a prospect, not the sense that I think he's going to be just like this, phenomenal quarterback, but I think his ceiling is like an Alex Smith type quarterback. I think that's his ceiling. And Alex Smith wasn't like a generational type quarterback, but he won games, So it's a lot to speak for that. But JJ McCarthy over under 5.5. What do you think about that? Are you confident in either which way? You think,
I don't think it makes any sense. I don't think it makes any sense. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, it's obvious. And then I was reading into it and I'm like, maybe not as obvious, but I love the over of 5.5 because I don't know why.
Yeah,
it would be necessary for the Vikings to come in there at 4 or 5 and trade because I think he'll still be there at 11. And remember last year, like people were saying, "Oh, Will Levis is going to go top 5," and he didn't go till he went like early in the second round.
Right.
So it could be a similar situation there. I like it. I also, for which team to select a player. Which team to select JJ McCarthy. The Vikings are at plus 130. I still think that they'll get him, and that's a way to kind of, hedge a little bit because it's both plus money if you wanted to do both of those. I still think they'll get him. I just think it won't be in the top 5. I just don't understand why someone would waste other draft picks or players to go up and trade him when he could be there,
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because like studying his numbers in the offseason, I really did like a heavy deep dive into the top 6 quarterback prospects. And I have this like comprehensive sheet of data that I look at, and he's all over the place. He leads some categories in some. He's very underwhelming in others. Like total EPA in the 2023 season, he was dead last out of the top 6 quarterbacks. Now, not dead last out of all the quarterbacks in that draft, but just out of the top 6 quarterbacks. But you turn around, like his on target percentage, he was top 3 at 74.2%. Average depth of target was on the latter side. Of course, he didn't really stretch the field that much, but it was a lot better than Bo Nix's. And in fact, it was better than Caleb Williams. So he actually graded top 3 as throwing under pressure, even though he didn't throw under pressure that much. So his numbers are all over the place. You can't really you can't take away anything from that. And it's really tough because JJ McCarthy, you can't take away anything from his season. And a lot of people will sit here and say, "Oh, Michigan, he only threw the ball 12 times a game," and it's like, well, why are you judging him on that? If Michigan could get away with that, why wouldn't you do that? They went undefeated, and JJ McCarthy only had to throw the ball 12 times a game. If you were a football team, you were praying that that's what happens. It's like if I can lean on my run game and my offensive line that much, 100% I'm going to do it. I think that a very advanced passing game is the key to success in the game of football as we know it today. But at the same time, if you can ground and pound and just lean into your trenches the entire game and then throw it when you need to, then 100% do it. So JJ McCarthy, I think it's a little bit too much hate, but at the same time, top 5, given the nature of what we think is going to happen in the top 5, the only way that happens is Arizona trades out of 4, I think. Because, Chargers aren't taking them, or there is this slight chance that New England takes them and they, for some reason, like JJ better than they like Drake May or Jaden Daniels. But can we really sit here and say that that's, bona fide truth? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm taking over. I'm taking over 5.5, especially at plus money, man. You're on mute.
Sorry, the dog was howling. Yeah, I like it. I've been looking at that one from the beginning, and I went off of it, back on it. Yeah, I just don't think it makes sense, and we don't know what's going to happen, right? That's why it's called a bet. That's why it's called a bet.
100%.
So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bet that the white guy does not get drafted in the top 5.
Yeah. Okay, so other 2 quarterbacks. Very important topic of this draft, even though they're not as highly rated or projected to go as high. Bo Nix and Michael Penix. Both of them have the same exact over-under at 32.5. So basically you're saying, will one of these guys get drafted in the first round or not? So Bo Nix actually has a little bit better odds than Penix. I think Penix is plus money. He's even money at plus 100, and Bo Nix is around minus 150. Now those odds are subject to change. They change every day, but that's what I'm seeing. So this is posing an interesting question because, again, the way that it's, that over-under is set is like, do you think that either one of these guys are going to be taken in the first round or not? And one of them definitely will. Now, which one is more of a fun debate and more tougher of a question than I think people will kind of give it credit to? I think that Michael Penix will go ahead of Bo Nix, and I think Bo Nix will be the one that falls to the second round. But I've seen a lot of like Bo Nix love to where they think that, one of these teams in the divisional round losers or the conference championship losers, like they may take him, So I'm asking you, do you think one of these guys will be taken in the first round, and which one do you think will be taken?
I mean, honestly, I think that the only spot that one could go is maybe the Raiders at 12. Where are the Raiders at?
Yeah,
the Raiders are at 13.
The Raiders are at 13. You have Denver, Raiders, Saints may take one given their angst towards Derek Carr.
He sucks.
But everybody else is pretty much like, I feel like locked in,
Yeah, I kind of feel like the Broncos are going to ride with Stidham for another year. And so, it comes down to the Raiders. They have Jimmy G, who blows, Aiden O'Connell. And AOC wasn't that bad last year, but I do think, if I'm a GM, I probably don't of either of those two teams, just because, you got a lot of holes. And I do think that Penix could go to the Raiders. I've seen a lot of mocks there. I think it makes sense. And Penix really gets a bad rap because he was hurt like every single year in college.
Yeah.
But he's pretty much awesome. He's a great quarterback. He's not as mobile anymore because of all of his injuries. But I'd be willing to bet on it. I think I agree with you that he'd be more likely to go than Nix in the first round. But honestly, I think I don't see a whole lot of value in those bets just because these are kind of really up in the air, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one, I would pick Penix to go. I think that.
Yeah.
He has a better profile.
I see, two slim chances of these particular things happening. So first, I see Miami at 21. Now, they need some guys. Outside of the quarterback position, they have Tua. But they could lock in Penix as a backup to mentor under Tua, whatnot. Again, off chance they just signed Tua to an extension. So it's very highly unlikely. But, if you want to put a mentor behind Tua or a mentee behind Tua and get him ready, that's certainly the way to do it. Same, style. I think Penix definitely has a stronger arm and is more of a gunslinger, more like a Matt Stafford type comp. Or there's a fun idea. At 23, the Vikings traded Cleveland. So the Vikings have a second pick in the first round. So they could essentially take a gamble with one of these guys here and they have flexibility. They have Sam Darnold. If one of these guys doesn't really perform in the offseason, doesn't seem ready, they just roll out Sam Darnold. But if they do, they potentially got a unit now. And I feel like they're under a lot of heat, especially on the fact that Justin Jefferson has publicly come out and expressed his anger about the situation to get a quarterback. So, 23 Vikings, I mean, crazier things have happened, and I think them taking Penix would be not the dumbest thing ever. So, I'm taking Penix under because I see more opportunity for him to go under than I do with Bo Nix. And those are the two potential spots that I see. So, you never know. You never know. What do you think about that? Vikings, Penix, do you think it's possible? Do you think that out of range possibility?
I mean, yeah, if they're going to wait till 23 to do that, they can use the 11 to
do whatever.
Get Brian Thomas.
True. Or trade.
Or trade. And if you were to get the next best wide receiver off the board, I mean, you can, Xavier Worthy and not Mitchell, you can get anybody you want at 11, I would say. But you got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, a new young receiver, and you got 3 really young receivers and TJ Hawkinson, and you get Penix late. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can see that, but I'm so in. I'm Sam Darnold.
Brian Thomas.
So in.
Yeah, I know Sam Darnold. I think is a better option than most give him credit for. You mentioned Brian Thomas. Thomas is next on the laundry list to talk about. Consensus number 4 wide receiver in the draft. I think nobody's going to really question that. His over-under is set at 16.5. Do you think he's drafted over or under 16.5? Now, let me give you some players teams who may be looking for wide receiver around that range. Saints at 14. Colts at 15. Jags are at 17. And then the Rams at 19, maybe. So, I mean, he's going to have to be drafted by one of the Broncos. Broncos are at 12, excuse me. But when you get up that high, you're talking about like Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison are all gone at that point. Malik and Marvin are shoo-ins. Now, Rome Odunze, I could see him going, 9 to 11, 9 to 12 type of thing. So, Brian Thomas over under 16.5. It's fun. It's fun.
I'd have to lean over just because of the teams in front of them that need a couple other pieces. Now, I do like the Colts. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
You got Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman, Brian Thomas, and Josh Downs in the slot. I do like that a lot. Now, they've stuck with Alex Pierce for a couple of years. He's really not bad of a player, but just, they would have the running back said they would need a decent tight end to circle out the rest of the offense. But I kind of like him there at the Colts, but if his athletic profile is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
His athletic profile is crazy. I just think that most teams look at him more as a raw prospect, and I don't think that just being a raw prospect like that, he'll go higher than that. I do think over, even though I love him.
Yeah, I do too. I think he'll fall to the Rams, maybe. In my opinion, I think
that'd be cool.
They would be, even though they're stacked at wide receiver seemingly right now. I think Cooper Kupp is aging a little bit, and they'll need somebody to complement Puka Nacua really well. So,
I mean, Brian's an outside receiver, no doubt.
Yeah.
So Cooper and Puka both play in the slot.
Yeah.
So you can interchange them and have Brian outside always, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I like that. They do need help on the defense, though. Also, like a lot.
They do. I know. It's just fun to think about. The offense getting even better. So now, offense. Brock Bowers over under 12.5, and I think it has to be under before we even dissected it a bit. But this guy is like one of the best rated athletes in the entire draft, and I just don't see him falling past 12. I think a couple things could happen here. Bold prediction: Chargers take him at 5. Love the idea of that. fits right in with this offense and what Harbaugh's trying to do. And I think that Justin Herbert would just be drooling if he had Brock Bowers to throw to, his own personal Travis Kelce. Now, if that doesn't happen, Bears at 9 are a good prospect for this. And not only the Bears at 9, but I mentioned the Chiefs trading the Bears to jump up here and get Travis Kelce's successor. That's very much in play too. So that's why I like that 9 spot, a potential landing spot for Brock Bowers. And the last one, Broncos at 12. They got rid of what's his name, Jerry Jeudy. So they're missing their empty targets. Their current tight ends are nobody fancy. They had a lot of hype this offseason, but never went anywhere. So I think there's 3 good landing spots for Brock Bowers before at 12 that makes this over under a really easy take at under 12.5. But I don't know, maybe crazy. What do you think? Brock Bowers over under 12.5.
Under. And so let me counter your take to the Chargers. So Jim Harbaugh's their head coach now, right? They shipped out everybody. All they have is their quarterback and Gus Edwards. And so based on Harbaugh's style of play, they're going to try to ground and pound. They don't need that 5 pick in order to get players to do the ground and pound game. They can trade back a little bit and still get a really good offensive lineman or someone on the defense. My only contest to Bowers going there is he's not going to be, whatever team he goes to, he's not going to be blocking. And I think they would want more of a hybrid tight end that does better at blocking. Like Bowers is not a big guy. He's really strong.
Yeah.
But that's my only contest to that is I just think that it'd be awesome. But I just don't even think they're going to even care about wide receivers in the passing game. I just really think that this first year, they're just going to feed the Gus Bus and Blake Corum probably when they draft him in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah.
But that's my only contest to that. My favorite is the Jets.
Yeah. And
my favorite is the Jets.
The 10. Jets could trade
to 5. Get him. And
get him. Or they could get, Malik Neighbors or whoever. And the Chargers can still get him at 10. If the Jets do trade to 5, the Chargers are still sitting at 10. And that makes that pick even more likely, in my opinion. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that Brock Bowers goes under 12. One of the best athletes in the draft. One of the best
He's so awesome.
tight end prospects that we've ever seen. He's the only guy to ever win the Mackey Award 2 times. So
he's so good.
He's amazing. I wish we had more time to go through a couple more of these over-under hypotheticals, but we're at the end of our time here, guys. We appreciate you listening. Bet diligently, have some fun, and I hope you guys enjoy the draft as much as Brendan and I will. We will certainly be watching thoroughly next weekend. So we'll be back soon with some more offseason content as well as divisional breakdowns as we head into the 2024 season. So we will talk to you guys later.